think it's such an unfair place that we put our kings. When someone kills their daughter and they're a responsible man, and know that there's no way that you can retaliate because you've got to take care of your wife and other children. What an unfair place to put our kings. So what you're doing now is you're weakening them. Am I telling it?
You listen.
You're weakening them. And so when they come out, they can't come in their boldness that they normally would, because now they have to restrain themselves. You know how hard it is to contain a grown man who's somebody just killed his daughter? Do you know how hard that is? Right? So this is, again, another story that needs to be told, and I'm here to tell it.
Welcome to the All Inclusive Podcast. I'm your host, Shy, and today we have a very, very special guest. Very special guest. I'm excited. I'm nervous a little bit, and but we're gonna have an amazing show. We're gonna have an amazing show. So my temperature check. We're gonna start with that. And then we're going to go to the guest. I'm going to introduce who the guest is. My temperature check. Oh, my goodness. Like I said, I'm nervous, but I'm hot. I'm always hot on recording days. Always, like, super duper hot. And I'm not talking about 100 degrees hot. But I'm definitely hot. Yeah, I'm ready to rock and roll and have this amazing conversation. Today, we have Miss Krystal Gonzalez. She is the mother of Aaliyah Gonzalez, who was murdered a little over a year ago at one of the biggest mass shootings in Baltimore's history.
That's
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
It's so crazy when you
Say
that.
yeah. It's heavy for me to say it. And last year when I was recording, I had to go back to the episode because the episode was about self-care. And before the episode, now you and I didn't know each other.
Right.
I, as a mother, as an aunt, as a godmom, as a woman, I was like, we gotta we gotta, pay homage to those people who lost their lives. I didn't know your daughter. I didn't know you. I didn't know your family. But it was just like a pulling. And it was so heavy to even say. So I can imagine as her mother, how hearing that is even heavier.
First of all, when we got the call for you to say Aaliyah was shot, it was almost like my husband was speaking Japanese.
Whew.
Because that don't make any sense.
Right.
Not Aaliyah. And I think even on my way here, we're talking about it. And we're just like, Aaliyah?
Right.
It's always that question, but Aaliyah?
Right.
That doesn't make any sense. And it's crazy because even a year later, we just celebrated the 1 year of the shooting. I have a hard time with words, but and I'll go into that a little more because that's my way that I digest what's happened, right? So you won't hear me say words like murdered.
Right.
You'll hear homicide.
Okay.
Or you won't hear Aaliyah's dead. You'll hear Aaliyah was shot or the shooting.
Right.
Because like I said, that's a way that I need to digest what's happened. Now, I know what happened.
Right.
I was there on the scene. We had a funeral for her.
Right.
But it's some things that I'm still working with.
Yeah.
And everybody has their own ways of processing things.
Yeah.
But unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I want to say Aaliyah Day. I didn't know Aaliyah, but that day I knew who Aaliyah was.
That was everything to me.
Yeah.
Because just like you said we didn't know each other,
Mhm.
but when Aaliyah was shot,
Mhm.
there was a compulsion within me. And do you know what a compulsion is? You have no control
True.
over
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
When Aaliyah was shot, I felt like I needed to show people who she was.
Mhm.
I was pouring out every post through tears and snot and pain. And you don't know who she is. You heard about this shooting, but you don't know my baby.
Right.
And I just kept going. I had to. I
Right.
had to. So when you say you felt like you knew her, that's what I always intended, was for people to see her spirit.
Yes. 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 Definitely. And that was actually one of the questions I was going to ask. Who was Aaliyah, and who is she to you at this moment?
Aaliyah's everything to me. She's always been everything to me. She was my first daughter. She's my second child. When I had her, and I'll share this with you because not many people know, but when I had her, push that baby out, she had these little white dots on her nose. She was the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in my life. And I, right then and there, I named her Juliet. Because in a way, it was like I was her Romeo. I was so in love.
Oh my goodness.
Right? And that is my pet name for her. It's not her middle name. It's not her first name. It's nothing a part of her name. But I still, even in her passing, you'll hear me say Julie because that's who I'm talking to. And my whole family knows that.
Right.
That's a nickname for her. And people outside of the family don't really know that story. But again, I'm so in love with her. So she was my Juliet for sure.
Wow.
And she was just absolutely amazing. So, when people see the things that I'm doing now, but you have no idea the soul ties that I've had with this child. And I never have to lose it. Just because there's a separation, I never have to let her go. Who said I have to let her go?
Right.
You never stop being a mother.
Never. Ever. When you and I connected, we just connected. And then later on down the line, I think you posted something about being a mom. And I was like, I understand because I miscarried in 2020. And when I miscarried, it was like
Take your time.
as a mother, because you become a mother the moment you get pregnant. The moment you get pregnant, you become a mother.
Absolutely.
There was a sense of like protection and love and connection that no one understood. And I was like, I failed my child.
Can I say something to you? And I didn't even know I was carrying this, but I found myself in the bathroom one time, and I was making a bath. This is after the shooting, after Aaliyah has been gone for, I don't want to say maybe 2 months. And I remember sobbing inconsolably, right? This is so much darkness, but I remember saying out of my mouth and not knowing that I was carrying this, I can't believe I couldn't keep you here.
Whew.
Right? And I know it was my fault. But that's the sense that a mom has
Yes.
with protecting her babies.
Yes.
It just came out.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to go a little bit into who you are, though.
Okay.
Who is Krystal Gonzalez? Beyond the wife, the mother, the activist, who is Krystal Gonzalez?
Wow. I think all of those things are a culmination of what makes me Krystal, you know, because what people don't know is I've had a very hard upbringing. So people are seeing my movement now, but you have no idea the intense personal training that God has been putting me through throughout my life, right? So I was a mother before I was a mother, okay? My mother was a drug addict. Many parents were caught up in the crack scene.
Right.
I'm the oldest of 5 kids, and I pretty much raised my brothers and sisters. I've had custody of them. When I said raise them, I raised them. It was almost a point where my mother became my child. And so, yeah, there was a ton of things happening in the background. So I've always been that figure that people would look to, God. And, this is just a part of my fabric.
Right.
Right? So, I'm fiercely protective. Fiercely protective. You see my husband, he's 6'2". And I'll knock somebody down real quick when it comes to him or any one of them, right?
Right.
And I think I've always had this intense passion for protecting folks that I love so dearly, right?
Yeah.
Because I was the person who needed protection
Phew.
and didn't get it. I didn't get it. The people
Yeah.
who were supposed to protect me needed drug money. And so they would put me out into positions that I shouldn't have been in. You know what I mean? So
Right.
I knew for sure I was always that person. And I say people are discovering who I've always been. But I knew at a young age that if I was going to protect me, I have to go inward and have to trust God to carry me through things. So, you know, I've always been this way. I've always been this way.
I seen you post a post, and you was pretty much saying that, and you were like, you guys don't know who my grandmother is. Tell me about her.
Oh my gosh. My grandmother was our saving grace. So when I think about how strong she was with all of, I mean, when you think about all of your children being on drugs and you having to take in all of their children into the household, it was many times my grandmother wouldn't eat because she would make sure that she made breakfast for all of the grandkids. So we was a household where all the cousins were there, and we're sleeping on the floor, you know, head to toe and that sort of, you know, thing. And our cousins were like brothers and sisters because we were there all the time, you know. And I think about my grandmother and how strong she was and how she never really complained about anything. She just did it. She just did it.
So it's like you seen her faith, and it just like amplified your faith.
That amplified my faith. But to that point, there was always something that I can't even describe. So for me, even though, you know, mother, aunts, uncle, all of them were in the street, I remember getting myself dressed one day. I was 8 years old, getting myself dressed to go down to this building that they called the church.
Okay.
I went down there by myself at 8 years old. Wow. There was no supervision
Right.
for
Right.
me,
Right.
you know, and when I talk about being in the hood, this is what I mean. And I pretty much raised myself, you know. So I was always drawn to learning more about God and learning more about the spirit, because what I'm experiencing just don't feel right. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like you just know when something is off. But I've been always very, very connected spiritually, and you know, by the grace of God, I'm still here and still persevering.
Yes. 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 Can you explain to me the Survivor series and what prompted you during your grief process? What one thing prompted you to say, you know what, I need to start the Survivor series? And can you tell the people what the Survivor series actually is?
Absolutely. So the Survivor's Voice came from many, many people coming to me, inboxing me. We would talk on the phone. These are survivors of violent crimes. These are mostly gun violence survivors. And they're telling me their stories. They heard about what happened with Aaliyah. They're watching me online, and they just want to tell their stories. And there was one common thing that I got from every last person that would share something. So it's not just mothers, it's fathers too.
Right.
Right? And then it's also aunts and uncles that are telling me their stories. They're all telling me, Krystal, I've been affected too. I've had this, and it just blew my mind, the vast number of people who are experiencing this gun violence thing or any violence at all. So I said, okay, God, now I'm very empathetic, but I also absorb a lot of energy.
Right.
And what do you do with this, right? Because I'm sitting here grieving.
Grieving, yeah.
And now I'm taking on their grief. And I'm like, you got to be careful, Krystal. What are you doing? Because I've known how sensitive I am to people's problems and their spirits. I know how sensitive I am. So I always would say, Krystal, you got to watch. You have to guard the things that you allow yourself to see and you allow yourself to hear.
Yes.
You know, that's online, that's in person. People try to tell me, oh, did you hear about such and such? No. And I don't want to hear about it.
Right.
You know what I mean? You're the gatekeeper of those things.
Yes.
So when it came to this, I knew I had to be an ear. But how do you disassociate, or how do you not absorb? You can't. You can't not absorb it. But Now I hear a voice from God. I said, okay, God, I hear their stories. What am I supposed to do with it?
Mm-hmm.
What am I supposed to do with it? And I heard so very clearly, share their stories publicly. Let the world hear their stories. And I said, okay, now I'm going to start this series, and it's called The Survivor's Voice, because the survivors don't get a voice. They don't get a voice. And see, here's the thing. The one common thread that I mentioned earlier was that survivors only want to talk about their loved one. They want to share who their loved one was. Because you hear about the tragedy, but you don't know the person.
Right.
And see, the media won't cover it. And here's the thing. The media can't cover it because just as sure as Aaliyah was shot, the next day, 5 more kids were shot. And the next day, there were more kids that were shot. You get what I'm saying?
And it was back to back. It was like the mass shooting happened here, and then in Philly,
Pennsylvania.
Yep.
And
it
so,
happened.
with that being said, their loved one is getting pushed back further and further and further and further. Now, it's not the media's job. They can't keep up.
Right.
So what do I do with all these stories? So I started the Survivor's Voice. And the Survivor's Voice, it serves a few purposes. One of the purposes is that the survivor can come on and highlight their loved one. They can talk about how amazing this person is. Who, we really like to focus on the personality of that individual, because that person meant so much to so many, right?
Yeah, right.
The other reason, the purpose that the Survivor's Voice serves is that it puts the mirror up to the faces of our community to see the damage that we're doing to each other. It shows us that the things that we're glorifying are killing us, and we need to stop this behavior, right? Because survivor after survivor, I don't run out of stories because there's so many people.
Yeah.
And then another purpose that it serves is it shows our governments, and it shows our legislators, and it shows the leaders of the city, you need to step in here.
Yes.
These are things that are happening. This is a plague that's going on, and we need help. We need to stop this bleeding, right?
Yes.
So that is all what the Survivor's Voice purposes is to make sure that we are effective and our voices are being heard. Yeah. So we have the Survivor's Voice. And I cannot tell you, every time I have a guest on, the number one thing that they say is that I feel like a weight was lifted off my shoulders. It's so therapeutic. It's like someone is hearing me.
Yes.
And it's amazing.
Yes. So not only do you have the Survivor's Voice, but you have your nonprofit.
Yes.
Redirecting our culture. So
that's my baby.
Yes, that's your baby. That's your baby. Like how the podcast is my baby, and I'm sensitive to who's on here and who's around. And you see, my team is small.
Yes.
My team is small because I don't want everybody hands in it.
Right. Same here.
Yes.
Same here.
Tell me about redirecting our culture.
Oh my gosh. So like I said, it's very dear to my heart. And the reason being is because when Aaliyah was shot, the number one word that I kept hearing was redirect. First of all, I had no identity. I didn't know what I was supposed to be doing when she's not, like, I'm her mom.
Right.
What do you mean she's not coming back home?
Right.
I see what's happening, but there were so many changes. So I kept hearing redirect. You've got to pivot. You're a basketball player. I'm a basketball player as short as I am. I'm a point guard.
Oh, you're a point guard? Okay,
but you got to pivot.
Right.
You know what I mean? And you have to change with the change. So redirect would not go away from me. And then I started looking at, with a wider lens, what's going on. Because these things are issues that have not been dealt with. We have absolutely got to redirect where our culture is going.
Yes.
Because the very things that we're glorifying, the sex, the money, the Meg Thee Stallions, the Cardi B's, the alcohol being poured, these are the very things that are killing us.
Yes.
Right? You have people who can't show up in a restaurant and post their location because someone is jealous of the chain that they're wearing.
Right.
And they want to shoot and kill and rob and steal. You know what I mean? So these are the things, the flashiness, the things that don't really amount to real wealth.
Right.
Why are we not teaching people about real wealth? So we've got to redirect and restore principles of respect, pride, and dignity back into each individual, because there was a time when we cared about what we looked like when we walked out
Yes.
the door. There was a time when we cared about our neighbor. There was a time that we didn't walk past these youth as if they don't matter. Because here's the thing, the minute you do that, they already feel like they don't matter. But the minute you do that, you further their thought process that they don't matter.
Yeah.
Right? And
Yeah.
so what do? They don't care.
I really see, like, in lower socioeconomic neighborhoods, you see an increase of crime. Like in Brooklyn, it's considered subsidized housing.
Right.
And you have other subsidized housing units in Baltimore, but the crime is so high because that's all they are seeing. Nobody's going into those neighborhoods and saying, hey, I see this one kid that is special. Let me pull that one kid out because he's a leader. And if he goes and he wants to have a job, or he wants to go to summer school and he wants to do something different, everybody else is going to follow him.
Right.
And it's really sad because I think of the word community. When I think about redirecting our culture, I think of community.
Absolutely.
I think of village. And that's what we need. We need to get back to where we are the village. We are imparting into our kids. We are loving our children. And even if a child doesn't have something, it's okay. You can get it from someone else. It might not be mommy or daddy. It might be auntie that's on the...
You better say
Yeah.
it. Because everything that I saw when I was growing up, you could have went either way, right?
Right.
But see, I had to see it wasn't my immediate family. I had to see other examples through outside sources that realized, like, this ain't it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so even going through those processes, it's brought me to be the parent that I was to my children, right? So when you hit on something that's so, and I don't want to rush past that, because you talk about community.
Yes.
And community, you know, my son, he gets on me all the time because I love words.
I'm a writer, so
oh my God,
yeah,
I love
words are like everything.
I love words. I have so it's 5 of us. I'm the oldest of 5. One of my mother's kids' father, one of my brother's father, he came into my life when I was 8 years old.
Okay.
And you know, they had their issues and stuff like that. But I remember when I didn't know a word, I went to him, and his advice to me was go look it up.
Go look it up.
And so whenever I needed to find out what the meaning of the word is, I would grab the dictionary, and I love the dictionary, and I'll tell you why. Because as soon as I went to look up that word, it led me to another word. So I could be there for as long as I want to in the dictionary. Now, with that being said, the word community is comprised of 2 words. You have common and you have the word unity, right? So that means that you have a set of people, a group of folks who have common interests, and they're unified in common foods, and they're unified in common cultures, and they're unified in common practices, and they're unified in the schools, right?
Right.
These are these, and so when you say community and you have a place that's undesirable, that means everyone in the community is settled on that. They're unified in that.
Yes.
So this is what I mean when I talk about tolerance. Tolerance levels being too high when it comes to crime, and it comes to, again, you said that you can see a young person in a place like Brooklyn, and no one is telling that person how great they are, how talented they are, and people don't really pour into our young people anymore.
Yeah.
You know, they are so gifted, and they
this
don't even know it.
generation is just, it's like they have more access than what we had. But we have to structure it where it's not so quick and easy.
Yeah.
You know, we have to structure it where, okay, you have more access. What are you going to do with that more access?
Yeah. I mean, it's so creative. And if they had enough time to get off of some social platforms, because social media is making your attention span like an ant. Like, it's so small. But if you had time to get off of some social platforms, you then can take the time to think and be creative. So even, some of the activity that they're doing, like I said, a lot of crime, and it's not just the youth. I hate that we are all so focused on the youth,
Right.
because these are grown adults that are putting things out there for the youth to
Right.
get, right?
Absolutely.
So when I think about some of these crimes and things, I'm like, you know what? There's a lot of money to be made based off the crimes alone. And I say that because look at all the car thefts. So
Yes.
now we have the steering wheel lock. So somebody getting real rich off the steering wheel lock company, because people are stealing packages. Now you got the Ring camera. Somebody getting real rich because they discovered the Ring camera, right? Because people are committing more crime. So if you want to solve a problem, look at the crime. You can get real rich.
Real rich. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I came here with a plan. This is what I mean when I start talking to people. I mean, I've got tons of ideas, but it's like, everything is there.
Yeah.
You just got to be creative. You got to sit down and think about it for a second.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Now, you hit on being a mom from the jump.
Oh yeah,
From the jump.
it's my favorite thing.
Yeah. How has the transition of Aaliyah affected first your husband and secondly your children?
So I will say, with my husband, because he absolutely adores Aaliyah. I think, and I'll just hit on this point because I feel like it's so important, so important. I think it's such an unfair place that we put our kings. When someone kills their daughter and they're a responsible man, and know that there's no way that you can retaliate because you've got to take care of your wife and other children. What an unfair place to put our kings. So what you're doing now is you're weakening them. Am I telling it?
You listen.
You're weakening them. And so when they come out, they can't come in their boldness that they normally would, because now they have to restrain themselves. You know how hard it is to contain a grown man who's somebody just killed his daughter? Do you know how hard that is? Right? So this is, again, another story that needs to be told, and I'm here to tell it. So I think about my children. And then I know, first, I want to say this. Everybody looks at me to see how to be. That's important. Look at my children. Everybody, thankfully, because of how I am, they're all doing okay. And I praise God for that every day. Because, yes, it's terribly devastating. There's tons of tears, tons of realizations that Aaliyah's not here. And it's hard. But I want to illustrate this as well. We don't know what that looks like down the line for my now 11-year-old son, knowing that his sister was killed, shot and killed. So what does that introduce? And this is just my family that I'm talking about. I'm going to illustrate my family. What does that introduce 10 years down the line? Drug abuse, alcoholism, trust issues, more crime. Abandonment.
Yeah.
So now we're dealing with millions of dollars being spent in mental health facilities because of trauma that was caused at 11. And so now you have another cycle. So you got the crime, you got the trauma, you got the crime, it's just continuous, right? So that's why it's so important that we get these principles back into our people, because you are not going out and shooting and killing people when you have respect for yourself and you have pride in your community.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think I just said I illustrated one family. I'm one of hundreds of families throughout this area. I'm just talking about this area right here. And I know this because those families call me to tell me their stories. Yeah.
I said, your husband's very quiet. And you were like,
Nope.
not at all. Not at all.
Nope. And I tell you this because my husband's Jamaican. He's got a lot of radical ideas. Things that people are not ready to hear. And, yeah, like I said, someone shot and killed his daughter. So he's more comfortable with saying those things to me. But as far as in the public, again, it's always a safety issue because my husband has tons to say. And here's the thing. He doesn't like to say it because nothing is being done.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Nothing is being done.
And we're going to hit on that.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to hit on that. Now,
Mm-hmm.
how do you feel about these trumped up charges
Okay.
that these other young people
Mm-hmm.
are being that it's I have so many feelings about this.
Yeah.
Because I feel like they're in the jail system, which is a cycle.
Mm-hmm.
So now they got a record. Now they can't get a job. Now they get out.
Mm-hmm.
And it's trumped up charges. Nobody can say, hey, this is the bullet that shot
Mm-hmm.
Aaliyah.
Right.
How do you feel about that? Like, as Aaliyah's mom, as an activist, how are you feeling about that?
Oh.
And how the government is just like...
So, yeah, I've got a lot to say about that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I do.
And this is a safe space.
You know, I do. So, the very first thing I would say is that it's very hard for people to be responsive when it's so easy to purchase a firearm on the streets. You know, I talked to a mom whose daughter was shot and killed 2 years ago. Bullet came half a block down the street, hit her in her spine. This boy, 16 years old, sold his gun the very next day to a 15-year-old boy for $920. Is that easy? So access to these firearms it's like going to a grocery store.
Absolutely.
You know, it's unbelievably easy to purchase a firearm. And then you have that aspect that the kids in the street have better guns than the police do.
Yes, they do.
No respect for authority.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because what you gonna do?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Magazines on them and
Right.
everything.
And to that point, you got two boys who had ankle monitors on. Oh my God, me and my husband was just talking about this coming here. What's the solution? You're not trying to fix a problem. You know, we talked about the cost of having a boy, or excuse me, I don't say boy because it can be boy or girl, but having someone on an ankle monitor, how much it costs a day, right? There's no solution there. But to send them to a boot camp, it costs way less. Mm-hmm. To send them to some form of job training, it costs way less, right? Yeah. Because there's no solution there. This is just perpetuating the crime. And again, murder and crime is big business. Mm-hmm. It's very big business.
Yeah.
So now I'm going to bring it back to Brooklyn Day. You have two people who have ankle monitors on and able to be at a block party for hours. Mm-hmm. And now we talk about all of these charges that are coming up. And I won't say too much about the criminal case. Mm-hmm. I'll just keep it to what's been actually out. Right. But I cannot explain to you how someone is sentenced for 25 years, suspend 20, and only serve 5. I don't know what that is.
In state level, if he's on good behavior, he's only going to spend
Correct.
about 2.
Correct. And what I will say to that, even the 60 and 48 suspended, serve 12. Here's my thing, and I have to say this. I have to say this so clearly. I cannot spend my days worrying about how these boys will spend the rest of their lives. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Because there will never be justice in the sense that the world is saying. That I'm not jumping up and down because these are kids. Mm-hmm. These kids, and I know because one of the suspects who was in custody, their mother contacted me, and she's hurting because this boy is in custody with all of these charges. And, you know, I know it was a desperate outreach for me because why else would she reach out to me?
Right.
But she's hurting and she didn't sign up for this. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? So I think the best, I don't know what the best thing is. What I know is what I focus on is honoring Aaliyah's life and legacy. Yeah. Because it's nothing that the world can do to anybody that will account for her life being lost. You know what I'm saying? There's nothing. Yes. That's why the Bible tells us, thou shalt not murder.
Yeah.
Because you can't, whatever it is that's done is not going to account for the life that was lost.
Absolutely.
And people get so caught up on trial.
Yeah.
Oh my God, they get so caught up in trial, and I want justice for it. And I understand what they're saying. I understand what they're saying. But what happens when you don't get the judgment that you desire?
Yeah.
Right? And then after the trial is in, you do get the judgment that you desire. Well, now all your energy was focused there.
Yeah.
And so now that that's done, now you're in a severe depression because you had nothing else. You know?
Yeah.
So I try to steer people into places that you can put your energy that's going to, you got to focus on things that you can actually do.
Right.
That will actually change.
Mm-hmm.
Because that other stuff that's out of your control, i.e., prosecutors, judges, defense attorneys meeting in secret rooms without your knowledge, making decisions without your consent.
Yeah.
These are things that are going to happen. Those things are out of your control.
Right, 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 right.
So you got to focus on something that you can control, right?
Right. Yeah. I have one last question for you, and then I want to present you with something.
Okay.
So the last question is, you kind of answered it. How do you take care of yourself with all of the stories you're hearing, with your family, number one, all the stories you're hearing? I mean, your face is like everywhere, and I know that this is not what you signed up for at all. This is not, you're this big celebrity. Your child was shot, and I honor the word shot because that's what you use, shot.
Yeah.
So
I say shot and kill because when I even think about the word murder, to me, and again, this is just for me to digest, she wasn't targeted.
right,
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
She didn't even know what was happening. Right. So it's very easy for me to say homicide. It's very easy for me to say shot and kill because that's what happened.
Right.
But when you say murder, I'm like, all right, you know,
yeah,
I can't digest it.
Yeah.
I can't do that.
yeah, yeah. So how do you take care of Krystal?
That is a great question.
Yeah.
So I am mindful of my spirit. I'm mindful of when I need to sit down, and actually God will sit me down. And that's a fact. And we just had Aaliyah Day. Did a ton of planning.
Yes.
It was absolutely amazing. Yesterday I was in my bed all day, and it was the 4th of July, and I did not want to get up because it was very draining, right? So
Right.
in those moments, you gotta just be.
Yeah.
You gotta just be, because like I love to do things like, you know, my self-care, of course. You know, my family, I just love on them all the time. I think for me, you know, I read a lot. Oh my God, you know, I tell you I love words. I read a lot, and it's an escape, and a lot of it is it really does feed my spirit. You know, I can't read or see. I can't tell you the last show I watched. You know, but I do read a lot.
Yeah. I'm not a TV person either. I'll read or write. So I understand
It's
that.
an escape. It's like, yes, you get to put the picture in your head.
Yes.
You get to walk through the entire scene.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You're creating. You know, and you know, I love it. I escape there. But I love to be by the water. Oh my God.
Yes.
I will go by any body of water and just be. You know, I talk to Aaliyah all the time. I talk to God all the time. Walking is my therapy. You know, I mean, when Aaliyah was shot, can I talk to you about this for a second? 'Cause
Sure.
I feel like I'm ready to be open. I'm just like, this is, whew. So I'm going to explain to you something that I've never explained to anybody before because it was hard for me to figure it out because I was in the process of doing. So people were asking, well, what are you doing? And I couldn't really answer them because I don't know what I'm doing.
Right.
I don't know what I'm doing. I'm trying to survive this here. Well, this is the all-inclusive podcast. This is about to be the all-exclusive podcast because I finally can get this out. So I'll tell you, when Aaliyah was shot, again, so much confusion, shock, just devastation. Everything was dark. I mean, my face was cracking because I was wiping it all the time. from crying. Just my face is, and I still feel like my face is turned down because there's so much sadness, right? Well, here's the thing. I would walk and I would just say, God, I've got to figure out this death thing. Right? Because here's the thing. We know everybody's going to die. We know everything here is temporary, but we don't talk about death. We act surprised. As a matter of fact, we think other people die. That's why it hits us so badly. See, I tell you, I'm going to walk you through this thing. So then I'm like, okay, well, I am one of millions, billions of people who have walked this earth. I'm one, right?
Right.
So that means the very dirt that I'm walking on are our ancestors. Those people are no longer here. So we know death is a thing. The problem is we have gotten so used to people, and I'm putting people, pastors, religions, but people teaching us all the promises of God, but they give you all that fluffy stuff. You know what I'm saying? The streets are paved with gold, and the land is milk and honey. All these great things. You're gonna be prosperous. All of those things because you know that's what humans want to hear.
Right.
But humans don't want to hear that one of the very first promises is the day you eat of this tree, you will surely die. That's a promise.
Yes.
That's a promise. Not only that, but even Jesus taught you that in this world you will have many troubles. So why do you think that you get out of this thing unscathed? You're gonna have many troubles, right? So that can kind of take some shock out of our bodies, because when you really read or you understand, then you know that we got to encompass all of the promises of God, right? So I got to get a hold of this death thing. There's a lot of people who died before me, and I'm not the only mother who lost a child. So what did they do? I swear to you, I kid you not. These are conversations that I'm having as tears are pouring out my eyes, and I'm walking in my neighborhood. So many ancestors walked this earth before me. Other people have lost children. What did they do? Right? So I have these things in mind. So not only did I go to the ancestors, but now I got to look at other cultures. Right? Because here, we're not the only ones here.
Yeah.
So I got to figure out how other cultures honor their loved one after they passed.
Right.
See, I'm such a student. I'm always trying to learn something. So I look at other cultures and I find out this. And Buddhists, this is a good one. So Buddhists, they talk about death, and they talk about it often. They talk about it often, and not to be morbid, but they talk about it so that the family, and you get this closeness, because you know at any point you and I are going to be separated from each other.
Right.
Right? The person you love the most, you may not be there the next day.
Right.
So they talk about it because they are able to be kinder to each other. They're able to, if they have conflict, they're quick to resolve it.
Yes.
Right? So that knowingness that, yes, this is going to happen, whether you like it or not, it's going to happen, and you have no idea of the hour. But you are not disrupting and being, negative to that person, right? So that was a beautiful one that I know. Another thing is, I remember that there's so many stories, girl. I'll tell you about this one. So there was a story of two girls in India, sisters. One of the sisters got caught on the train tracks, and she passed. She got hit by a train. It was a tragic accident. And the surviving sister, the mother was distraught, of course.
Right.
The surviving sister went to one of the gurus, and she says, I wish I would have died that day too, because not only did I lose my sister, but I lost my mother. Oh my God, I was determined to not have my children lose me too.
Yes.
That was hard. So I looked at other ancestors. I looked at other cultures, but this is the biggest one, because this is the one that got me over. I had to look at other species. And I'm not even kidding you.
Wow.
I'm not even kidding you. I went to the animal kingdom So this is what I found. I remember my husband and I being, it's so funny, we were in Miami and it was our anniversary trip a couple years ago. And we're laying and watching the Discovery Channel because, we're just nerds. Anyway, but the Lion Kingdom, if you know anything about the Lion Kingdom, if a lioness has cubs and there's another rogue lion who wants to mate with the lioness, they usually kill off the offspring from that other. So this lion got a hold of one of the cubs, and that cub succumbed to his injuries.
Right.
So in the scene, you see the surviving two cubs nudging their brother, trying to get him up. They don't understand that he's not getting up.
Right.
But now you see the lioness coming into the scene, and you can see a tear coming down her eye. And you can see her trying to move the baby. The baby's dead. And she's mourning. It was so palpable that I look over and my husband is sobbing. And I'm like, okay, Al, let's go. Come on, get dressed. We ain't supposed to be in here crying. You know, so it was just that moment, knowing that the lioness was in pain and mourning the death of her cub, right? So I saw that in the species. Then I got a hold of elephants. So there's elephants migrating to water. One of the elephants had their babies in a dry season, and if you know anything about that's not the most ideal conditions because she has to nurse her baby.
Yeah.
So the mother's thinking she's producing milk. She's not producing enough. The elephants have to continue on through this hot heat and all these things. It's terrible conditions. And so one day, the baby elephant just lays down and he passes. Yeah. And so the mother notices and she comes over and she's wailing. She's got a tear coming down her eye. She lays down with her baby. And the other elephants don't realize right away, but after a while, they do realize. And the other elephants come back to the mother, allows her to mourn with her baby. And then after some time, they all picked up.
And they...
And so what I got from the lion and the elephants is that you've got to survive. You've got to continue on no matter what. And that's what I said. That was the biggest thing that helped me over is that you got to survive this thing.
Yeah.
Because nothing will change what happened, but you got to continue.
Yeah.
So that was part of my process there.
Yeah. Can you bring in the small bag, please? The small gift bag. Thank you. So, this interview was so just, I've prepared for weeks, or I thought I prepared for weeks.
Really?
And I just want to be a light. I just want to be a light. The podcast is about spreading light, spreading love, bringing worlds together, one conversation at a time.
Beautiful.
And so important to have the conversations because it's so many misunderstood situations that happen that if we just talk it out, we would understand each other.
Right.
We would love each other a lot more.
That's right.
And I just wanted to bless you with a few things. The first thing is this, because this is how I see you.
Oh, man. Difference maker. That's fantastic.
Yeah. I see you as a difference maker. And if you want to read that, you can.
Sure. This is difference maker. A very special person who changes lives daily. An ordinary person who accomplishes extraordinary things by inspiring others to be the best that they can be. Someone who makes the impossible possible and the difficult easier by modeling passion, wisdom, goodness, and joy. Never forget, you are the piece that made the difference. This is fantastic. Thank you.
You're welcome. The other thing is I wanted to present you with a shirt from the podcast.
Yay.
Whenever you want to wear it, you can wear it.
Thank you. Oh, I'm gonna wear this on my next Survivor's Voice on Tuesday.
Yeah, good, good,
Like,
good.
look what I did. No.
Also, paper certificate. Just thanking you for
Oh,
coming and
thank
for
you.
redirecting the culture
In
um
honor of Aaliyah. Wow.
in honor of Aaliyah. And I know you carry Aaliyah with you every day in your heart. But I wanted to give you something that you can actually carry that was a representation of her.
Wow.
And this is Tiger Rose, which has healing properties. So this is a set, and it has Aaliyah's name on it, and you can always carry it. And these are actually earthly tones.
Right.
And Aaliyah didn't have a favorite color.
Right.
She loved earthly tones. So here you go.
Thank you so much. This
You're
is
welcome.
so thoughtful. Oh, I will wear them. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So, in representation of Aaliyah, we love you here. We love your family. We didn't have to know Aaliyah, but we love Aaliyah, and we know that her light and her life just shines here on this earth, even in her transition.
Yes, thank you.
So we thank you for coming and being so transparent.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
And we hope
Thank
that
you
this
for
helps.
having me.
You're welcome.
For sure, because this is beautiful, beautiful. Oh my gosh, I got to catch a couple of your episodes, and I was like, wow, this is awesome. So, I would do it again in a heartbeat. So I thank you for just being so amazing.
Thank you.
We talked before in our messages and that sort of thing, and I'm like, man, you are doing some incredible work.
Thank you.
And reaching the hearts. And you talk about difference maker. That's you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So with that being said, this is the All Inclusive Podcast with Miss Krystal Gonzalez, and we are out.